there, crafty friends. It's Tina from the Scrappin Rabbit blog, and I have a card to share with you today. And I made this for the Jaded Blossom April monthly challenge, and the theme is based on this picture. So let me show you that picture. So for the colors, they're beautiful, beautiful colors, but I did find them challenging. I don't have all of those colors in my Copic collection, so I decided to go for my watercolors. And I have this Zig Clean Color 36 pack, and then I have at the time, I don't know if I have all of them, but I have these Spectrum Noir aqua markers. And so between the two of these, along with my Tim Holtz, I was able to come up with the colors on this for this challenge. So these are the colors that I came up with that fit closest to what was in this challenge. And so I did take a few different shades of the purple. This one actually looks like that dark color, even though it doesn't look like that on the actual color. And then these are two variations of this of the second color. And then for the light blue, the closest I could come up with was this Tumbled Glass, as well as this Spectrum Noir Aquamarine, but this is much darker, so I'm hoping I can dilute it. For the greens, it's pretty much a combination between the two of these, so I took those two from my Zig, and then the Spectrum Noir for that last color. This was the closest that I have, and this is the pretty dark, so I'm hoping I can dilute that out. Maybe add a little bit of this blue in there, so I'm not sure how all that's going to work out, but we're going to find out. So this is what I started with. So I'm going to use this Strathmore Bristol Smooth Surface Paper, and it is the 300 series, and I find that this is a really nice white. So this is the paper that I'm going to use for this project. I'm going to use the largest rectangle on this Jaded Blossom Rectangle Dies 1 set to cut out the front layer of my card using that Bristol Smooth watercolor paper. I'm going to use my Big Shot to cut out those front panels, and I'm going to do two because I'm going to try to do more than just one card at a time. That's one of my goals for this year. So I'm going to give this stamp set here, Flower Cluster, a try. I didn't have a chance to play with it during the release, and I'm not a huge flower stamper. If you go through all of my projects, you're not going to see a lot of projects with flowers. So I think I might have a case of flower fear. I generally tend to gear more towards the cute things. I'm going to give this a try and see how it goes. Most of my projects using flowers are done with flower die cuts. So let's see. I have a friend that inspires me who makes beautiful floral cards, and she is Jenny, and she's a designer from the 10 Stamps. So I'm going to give it my best shot. So here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and use this big block along with my red little foam pad there. I'm not really sure how I'm going to arrange it, so I'm using the printout that holds the stamps as my guide to how I'm going to do my flowers. And that's really helpful because it gives me that visual that I need. And so I'm going to use the Versamark ink to go ahead and stamp onto that watercolor panel, and then I'm going to emboss it using some Stampin' Up! Fine Silver Detail Embossing Powder. I've never purchased anything from Stampin' Up!, but this was given to me by a friend who it inherited a bunch of crafty stuff and she didn't know what to do with it, so she gave it to me. And so this is really old stuff, but it works really well. So this is a really good product. So I'm just flicking off any of the excess powder, and I'm going to prepare to heat that all up using my heat tool. And I just move it around a little bit because I don't want to burn the paper, but this is thick watercolor paper, so it turned out really nice. And so now I'm going to use that as the stamping printout again as a guide as to how I want to do my next corner of flowers. And so I'm going to go ahead and ink that up with the VersaFine ink or the Versamark ink. and get that stamped and emboss it again with that same silver embossing powder. And again, the silver just looks great. It's embossing wonderfully. And it's kind of giving me an idea of how I'm going to color it, because at this point I'm not really sure exactly how I'm going to stamp it. And so I decide that I want to go ahead and add flowers to one more corner of this panel and then add a sentiment. So again, figuring out which part of the stamp to use for variety and adding that detail embossing powder to that last corner. So now that I have the flowers on all three sides, I went ahead and I did a second card, and I did it so that one is horizontal and one is vertical. And now I'm going to decide on what sentiments to use, and so I'm always in need of thank you cards. So I'm going to go ahead and do one for birthday and one for thank you. And the horizontal one, I'm going to use the birthday stamp. I'm going to use my static powder tool that I had forgotten to use as I was doing the flowers, but everything turned out okay. I'm going to use the VersaFine Onyx Black ink so that I can get a nice bold sentiment on there, and I will emboss that with some clear embossing powder. And I love this script, Happy Birthday, from the new So Many Birthdays for stamp set. And so here's some clear embossing powder, and I'm just going to heat emboss that. And then now my panel will be ready to be colored. And for my second card, I'm going to use a thanks sentiment. And so again, with the embossing powder tool, I'm going to go ahead and ink that up with the VersaFine, placing it where I want it to go first. And when you're using a stamp that has more boldness to it, sometimes it won't stamp completely perfect, especially when you're on a thicker cardstock like this watercolor cardstock. And so it's nice to have a little black pen on hand to dot that up, to cover up any spaces that might not have stamped perfectly. And then it will stick just fine to the embossing powder. And then you can go ahead and heat emboss that, and then it looks great. So I'm going to start by coloring my thanks card, and instead of using water, my friend Jenny, she doesn't do videos, but one time she did a Periscope where she was coloring with her, I believe, her Zig markers and the Spectrum Noir sparkle marker. So I've never done that before, and I want to go ahead and give it a try. So I think that I'm going to start with this big flower here, and I'm going to kind of go from dark to light, and I think I'm going to do it in the purples. So let's see how that works out. So I'm going to use the darkest to do just an outline around the petals for this larger flower, and I'm going to blend it out with the medium toned purple, or I guess it's the lighter purple with the Zig. And that's the nice thing about the Spectrum Noir aqua markers and the Zig markers, is they both work well together. They play nicely, and I'm just blending it out with that sparkle marker, which it seems to all be coming out just as I had hoped. And so I'm just playing around with that, not exactly sure how it's going to turn out, but hoping for the best. And I do like this idea of using the sparkle marker, because when you do use water, even with the watercolor paper, it does tend to warp a little bit, and I'm always annoyed with getting the warped paper for watercoloring. So this is really nice because it keeps nice and flat, and there's no warping. And I'm really liking how sparkly this is turning out. And I know that it's hard to tell unless I angle it a certain way exactly how much sparkle there is, but trust me, there is so much sparkle on these flowers right now. It's just gorgeous, or on these petals. And I'm just going to blend it out all the way to the center. adding a little bit more of that dark color and then a little bit of the sparkle marker. Okay, so I have both of my purple flowers done. So now I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with some of these other flowers. I think that I might try doing a blue, and I did find that I had this tumbled glass in a pen, so that's a lot easier to do than this, so I won't have to use any water for this card, but this is the lightest blue that I have to use for this. So let's see, I think I will do I think I'll do some of the littler flowers here. Well, I'll start with this one right here and see how that turns out. So as I color the rest of this card, I'm just going to be using the colors that I picked out and blending it all out with the sparkle marker. So I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of music as I get through this card because it's just a lot of coloring, and it's the first time that I did it, so it's not like I'm an expert or anything, but I'm just experimenting with the shading. So here is some music. So now that I have both of my cards colored, I'm going to go ahead and put them on a card base. I'm going to use some strong double-sided adhesive tape because with that thicker watercolor, my ATG gun is not a good choice for that. And so this strong adhesive will keep it from popping up. So once I adhere them to the front panels of my card bases, they will be pretty much done. So I'm just carefully lining them up so that they are even. And I decided I wanted to add a splash of sequins, so I'm going to use this multimedia matte glue. And I just like to squirt it on some cardstock and then use my little picker-upper tool to get them on there. But first I'm going to spread them out to figure out exactly how I want them to be. Once I have an idea, I'm going to go ahead and use the glue and attach them to the front of my cards. And here is the second card, adding the last of the sequins to it, and then that does complete both of my cards. These little sequins are from Pretty Pink Posh, I believe, and I used 2 sizes of the mix. And that is it, you guys. Those are my 2 Zig Sparkle Marker colored cards. First time with the floral design here. I want to thank you guys so much for stopping by. I hope you liked this process video. I hope you liked my cards. Please leave me a thumbs up, and I love to read your sweet comments. Thanks for stopping by again. I really do appreciate it. Happy crafting, everyone. Bye-bye.